charge that that triggered the felony that it allowed them to be able to sentence me the way that they did in 1994. I also caught another case. At that time, I was what you call giving out consignment on drugs. Two people in particular I gave consignment to, and I ended up getting arrested for a case. And when I sent someone to go pick up the money from them, they kind of just was like, whatever, I'm not paying them. So when I came home, one guy in particular, I ran into him with his girlfriend.
Did you get that case got dismissed, right?
The gun charge?
No, the one that you were away for. You got arrested for something. You're in jail.
Yes.
These guys figure since you're in jail, fuck it, we're not going to pay him.
Yeah, I'm not going to pay him.
And then the case that you were arrested for got dismissed.
Got dismissed.
Right,
I got
so
acquitted.
So then you come home.
So then I come home and, I need my money. I need my money. It's just me being honest. It's just me being straight. I gave you something, and we had an understanding that you were going to pay me. And when I came home, when I finally located this particular individual, he had his girlfriend with him. And this guy owed me $5,000 for some drugs that I gave him on consignment. I gave him an eighth of a kilo, which is 125 grams of cocaine. And when I saw him, he had a bunch of jewelry on. He was with his girlfriend. She had a bunch of jewelry on. And I said, hey, man, where's my money at? Oh, I was going to pay you. As far as I was concerned, his jewelry we was even. So I robbed him. And I took his jewelry. And his girlfriend happened to be there. And unfortunately, she got caught up in the situation. I had a bunch of young guys with me, and they robbed her as well. And he got hit in the head with the gun right here on the side of his head, and he got 2 stitches. And they gave me 25 years for that case.
Did you hit him in the head?
No. One of the guys that I was with hit him in the head. And he identified me in a photo array, unbeknownst to me. He identified me in a photo array. This guy, as far as I was concerned, he was in the streets just like I was. So
right.
I didn't really understand that, like I said, we go back to morals and values and principles and how warped they can be, right? In my mind at the time, this is a guy who I gave something to. He's living an illegal life. I'm living an illegal life. So as far as I was concerned at that time, it was fair game. In hindsight, as I moved on and I became more mature and I began to reevaluate myself, I realized how wrong that was. But that was later on. At this time, I committed the crime and I just kept moving. Another guy that I ran into, he also owed me some money. He owed me $7,000, and it kind of went along the same ways. He was selling drugs out of an auto parts store. He was a Spanish guy. I got word that this is where he was at, and he was selling drugs, and I was going to get my money. And the same circumstances kind of ensued. Saw him, hey, what's going on? Reading in between the lines and outside the margins without really going into all of the details, I robbed him because he owed me $7,000.
Did he get physically hurt?
No. He didn't get touched. Got roughed up a little bit, but there was no physical harm, nothing. Going back to morals and values and principles, right? In my mind, he was fair game. He's selling drugs, I'm selling drugs, you owe me money, I came to take what you have. In that world, that was considered as permissible. These are one of the rules of something that was permissible in that world. Long story short, in December 1997, I get arrested for both cases, really for one of them, for the one with the guy and the girl. And then the other case drops with the auto parts store, the guy that I said that was selling drugs out of the auto parts store. I am in the process of going to court. I'm going back and forth to court. I'm on Rikers Island at the time. It's just crazy on Rikers Island. That's when the gangs was involved. Prior to that, a year before that, I had got involved with the gangs. I was blood. I was a gang member. This is where the cut comes from on my face. I have a bunch of stab marks from just being in those environments and being on Rikers Island and just warring with other rival gangs, mostly Latin Kings and Inietas. My final offer before trial was 23 years, which kind of blew me away because my lawyer kept telling me that my maximum sentence was 25 years if I went to trial. So in my mind, it just didn't make no sense to me. Why would I forfeit my rights to an appeal if there's only a 2-year difference? I told the judge I would take 15 years right now. I acknowledged that I had made some mistakes and I had done some things that were wrong. And I said, I'll take 15 years right now. He refused to accept my plea offer, and I went to trial, and then I ended up getting 50 years. 5-0. And
So they give you 25 for each case? Is that
25
what it was?
for each case. Consecutive. So, and I remember like blowing trial and just not really understanding like what was being there, but not like, it was like almost surreal. And I remember when I went and got sentenced and the judge said 50 years. Now, mind you, I had a black lawyer, a black judge, and a white prosecutor. And I remember when he said 50 years, he said, he went into all of these reasons why he was sentencing me the way that he was sentencing me. There was never no they're supposed to do a report prior to your sentencing, and it's called a post-supervision interview. Pre-sentencing investigation is called the PSI, pre-sentencing investigation. There was never no pre-sentencing investigation. There was never no mitigating evidence presented on my behalf to, highlight why I may have made some of the decisions that I made. And he just called me a menace to society, and he gave me 50 years. And I remember when I first got to Downstate, which is a processing facility, and they give you what they call is a time computation sheet. And on the time computation sheet, it gives you all of the numbers, like the beginning of your bid, how much jail time you have. And I just remember 2049. That's all I kept looking at. And I was like, 2049? Are you fucking serious? This is 1998, 1999. And I'm trying to do the math, and I'm just like, 2049? I'm like, that's 50 years from now. And I remember going to the law library, and I forget how I get the World Almanac. And something just says, look up the life expectancy. And I look up my life expectancy. And as an African-American man, my life expectancy at that time was 67 years old when I did the math. And I said, I'm going to die in prison, man. I just really believed that I was going to die in prison. One thing I learned really, really quickly when I got to prison was that prison does two things to you. It brings out the best or it brings out the worst. And what I saw individuals who were at their worst, and I saw guys who were at their best. The guys who were at their best were guys who were involved in education, post-secondary education programs. They were running the program, they was running the violence groups, they was running the substance abuse groups. And I remember saying to myself, I want that. And I remember just being involved in so much bullshit because I was in a gang, and I was top of the food chain. I had my own nation. I wasn't just like the random gang member. I had a whole nation under me. And I was just in and out the box, solitary confinement, which has been considered as unconstitutional now. And I remember just having these moments of reflection and just asking myself, like, what are you gonna do? Can you spend the next 48 years living like this? And I said I couldn't do it. And I had lost all my privileges. They took everything from me. I was in Southport at the time, which is closed now. It's a solitary confinement facility in New York State. And I was on a loaf, which is also unconstitutional now. So the loaf is a dietary restriction that they give you. It's a chunk of bread, and it has cabbage and carrots in it, and they give you like a quarter of a cabbage, and they give you a cup of milk. When they can't take any more of your privileges, this is what they would give you. 6 days out the week, on the 7th day, you would get a hot meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then it would go back for 21 days. They would do this 6 and 1, 6 and 1, 6 and 1. And it was at that moment where I really said, I have to change my life. I have to change my life. I just can't do this. I had a wife. I had family still. My son was growing up. He was hearing stories about my so-called notoriety, and I just didn't want to be that dad. Like, I really was looking at myself and really evaluating, asking myself, like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? I was smoking a lot of weed at the time. I was drinking jailhouse hooch, and I was at my worst. And I had to figure out how to get to my best. So I decided to, when I got out of solitary confinement, I did 42 days on a loaf. I went from being 210 pounds to like 168 in like a matter of 7 months. Deflated me. And when I got out, I made a decision that I was going to walk away. And I didn't care about what the consequences was. And I said to myself, I've been doing bad for so long, I'm going to try to do something good. If all else fails, I could always go back to doing bad. But let me try. Let me give it a shot. And I ended up getting into school program. I got my GED. I left the gangs alone, which was a benefit for them because, you know, I was what you call an authoritarian. I was a rule guy. I'm still a rule guy. I like rules. You know, I like rules. I like structure. I like things to be a certain way. And it was to their advantage to get rid of me anyway. Plus, I knew a lot of the guys who were at the top.
Why was it to their advantage to get rid of you?
Because I was the type of person who would say, you doing that for what reason? Nah, you can't do that. The rule says that you can't do this, you can't do this. This is what the rules say. And the
rules of the prison or the rules of the streets?
The gang. The rules of the streets. Yeah, there was rules.
Give us a for instance.
Okay, so for instance, I could be in a whole nother facility. Let's say I'm in Greenhaven and a guy's in Attica, and they want to do something to him because they feel like he's not sharing his proceeds of drugs that he's bringing into the facility. The rules say you can't do that. That's his property. That's his belongings. So I was a rule guy, and they just, you know, it was to their advantage to get me out of the way. So when I decided to take a step back, they were like, yes. And it was to my advantage as well. And this was in 2005.
So there was no resistance?
None. And at that time, this is where a lot of the what they call set tripping began. The organization began to implode on itself.
The gang organization.
The gang organization. There was a lot of infighting, sets against sets, and I was just always against that. And it was time for me to go, and I didn't care whatever the consequences was. I was fortunate that there weren't any consequences, but I didn't care what the consequences was. I just walked away.
And then that begins your journey.
This begins my journey. I got into school. I got my GED. From there, I got involved in correspondence courses. I started interacting with guys who were teaching ART, aggression replacement training, and I started to begin to understand how these concepts work, what positive visualization is, deep breathing, how to remove yourself, conflict resolution. All of these ideas of change began to take place with me. Substance abuse. I stopped smoking weed. I stopped smoking cigarettes. I was smoking like 30 cigarettes a day. I'm literally having chest pains from smoking cigarettes. And I realized that I wanted to live. And the only way that I was going to be able to live and walk out of prison was